Grab your drinks and have a seat. It's time for serial killers.
Hello. We're here,
Again.
as usual.
Talking about?
Serial killers.
Yep.
I am T.
I'm Jay.
If you don't know who we are, welcome. If this is your first time listening, buckle up. But we also talk about other things like what we're drinking. We do some bantering. We kind of giggle. We kind of have good times, which brings me to something that I would like to address with all of you listeners.
In the beginning of every episode, you're going to hear us say hi and all that fun stuff, but you're also going to hear this.
What he's referring to is somebody left a message or a little comment on our Tickety Talk, which
we love comments.
I totally love. However, the comment originally, when it was written, you could completely tell that they were trying to kind of get like a rise out of me or to like make me feel some type of way. So the comment they wrote was, and mind you, when you see the TikToks, they're literally like a 1-minute snippet of our whole entire episode. What they said was, why is she laughing? And it was in reference to last week. We were talking about the part where...
All right, so I'm going to throw this in here. If at any time you guys hear me swallow, I really apologize. I'm drinking tea, and it is extremely hot, so I will try to be quiet. But
hey, we drink our coffees and teas.
But this one is especially hot.
I don't drink the hot shit normally. So anyways, back to what I was saying. So I was referencing a part where Mr. Pachushkin would hang children upside down by their leg and threaten to drop them to their death. And I laughed. And this person had responded with, why is she laughing? To which I responded with, listen to the whole episode and then you'll get it. Because had you listened beyond that, you would hear that I talk about how fucked up it was. And then I went on to say, it's literally my coping mechanism. So for those of you who've always wondered, I laugh. I laugh in the face of danger. Ha ha ha. No, I actually laugh in anything that makes me uncomfortable. That could be anything like as far as serial killers, murder, that kind of stuff. If it's awkward or uncomfortable to talk about, I laugh. Jay can attest to the fact that if Jay tries to be anything but himself, so if he tries to be like super sweet and like bring flowers.
Anything but myself. So myself is an asshole apparently. That doesn't do anything nice.
No.
It's when you're put on the spot or there's awkwardness, you laugh.
Like Jay brought flowers home one day. He does not bring flowers home like ever. And he brings flowers home and I just stare at him and I'm just like, oh, thank you. And I don't know what else to say but laugh because it's awkward for me.
Or like when I proposed to you at Christmas and you just stared at me.
Yeah, I can't.
Already married, just was getting her a new ring and re-asking her.
I don't like attention on me. I think it's just my coping mechanism. So if it offends you or bothers you that I laugh about serial killers and murder, apologies. I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just my coping mechanism. So please just let me be me.
We've always said we're going to be raw, and that's part of it.
And if you've ever listened to Crime Bitches, I just edited our episode the other day and I turned to my son and I was like, what is wrong with me? Because I'm in the middle of talking to my daughter on Crime Bitches and I'm talking about a potential serial killer. See, and I even laugh right now. I can't like say serial killer without laughing. I don't know why. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I was talking about the fact that I feel like could have a serial killer in the Portland, Oregon area because of bodies that they've been finding. And I'm sitting there laughing about it. And I like sitting there as I'm listening to it going, no wonder why people are like, what the hell is wrong with this chick? I promise you, I'm not crazy. I am crazy, but not like that.
Welcome to my world, people.
But I just cope that way. I'm so very sorry. I just cope that way. So apologies in advance because there could be some giggles and laughs in this episode as there normally is because sometimes I just can't handle what I'm researching and reading and all I can do is laugh to make myself get through it.
And now that we've got that out of the way, what are you drinking? Because I've already said what I'm drinking.
Well,
and yes, my tea has sugar because again, for the people who are new here, I don't like the taste of dirt, so I sugar my tea.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we're going to do like at some point, I'm going to literally have like merch and you're going to be able to buy a shirt that says something like that. I don't like dirt.
I don't like dirt, so I sugar my tea.
Something like that because it's all Jay ever talks about. Literally is sugaring his tea.
Yep.
I actually am just drinking the plain old cafe from the Nespresso machine. And it's just got some coconut cream creamer. It's the strawberry white chocolate Nespresso pod, actually.
Limited edition.
Limited edition. Fun fact, it's not my most favorite. It's good, but it's not my most favorite. My most favorite one so far is the hazelnut one, actually. I haven't tried all of them, but that's my most favorite. That and the Columbia. The Columbia is very good. Anyways, so that's what I'm drinking. But other than that, we could just get into it if we want to.
Now we can get into the real tea.
The real tea with sugar on top. With sugar. Actually, this tea definitely does not have sugar.
Pour some sugar on my tea if you want me to drink it.
Okay.
Hey-o. Stick to my day job.
Good idea. We're talking about a man named Earle Nelson. So Earle Nelson is actually nicknamed the Gorilla Killer and the Dark Strangler.
Ooh, Gorilla Killer. We could use him on the 1 versus 100.
So he has 22 to 25 victims. His murder dates are 1926 to 1927. The location of his murders are Canada and the United States of America. His method of murder is strangulation, and the characteristics of his murders are rape, necrophilia, and mutilation.
Yuck. So as we speak about necrophilia, for the people who don't know, it's having sexual relations with a dead body. So we want to put out a warning for this episode that there is some talk about that. We won't go into deep detail, but if that is something that bothers you, feel free to pass on through this one and we'll see you on the next one. But if not, buckle up and let's ride.
All right. So as always, we do a little background. So Earle was born May 12th, 1897 in San Francisco, California. He was actually born Earle Leonard Farrell. Now,
wow, and just for people who didn't catch that, that's Elf for his initials.
I didn't even. But that Farrell spelled differently. That's not the same Farrell. But anyways, that's cool.
Oh, I didn't even catch on that.
So his parents were actually Francis Nelson and James Farrell. Now, by the time he was 2 years old, both of his parents had actually passed away from syphilis, which I feel like was kind of like a common thing in the 1800s.
Yeah,
like the early 1900s.
They didn't have rubbers probably back then, and probably didn't have the medication to see what it was, and fix it. Now it's just a shot of penicillin. Actually, I don't know.
I was going to say, how do you know these things?
I have no idea.
So he ends up actually having to go live with his grandmother. Now, his grandmother was his maternal grandmother, which is how his last name ends up becoming Nelson, because he lived with Grandma Nelson. Okay. Now, she was a very religious woman, and he was actually raised along with her children because she had some younger children, although her youngest was about 10 years older than Earle when he came to live with them. But she had younger kids too. So she was just like, yeah, okay. So she takes him in and starts raising him. At a really young age, Earle actually starts showing signs of morbid behaviors and self-loathing. Now, for those of you who don't know what self-loathing is literally the constant belief that you are worthless, that you are a failure, that you are inadequate, and it's literally just like self-hatred. So it's not the same as depression, where depression you kind of feel helpless and worthless. This is a different type of thing, and he's like, as a young child, that's concerning when a young child hates themselves that much. At the age of 7, he was actually expelled from primary school. There's no description as to why, but he was expelled for being a bad kid, basically. At the age of 10, he was actually hit by a streetcar while riding his bicycle, and he was in a coma for 6 days.
And a streetcar is a train car, basically, that is on like the roads, especially back in the 1800s. It's going to be like a train car going down the road.
Like a
Like one that passengers would get on and off of.
Like in San Francisco, the streetcars.
Right, but for people who don't know what a streetcar is or have been to San Francisco to see a streetcar,
Okay.
I'm just trying to give them a little insight.
Now, since that accident had happened, he actually became more erratic. He suffered from memory loss, and he also had frequent headaches. Now, I'm going to make this very clear. The previous episode that we just talked about, this kid suffered frontal lobe damage. Okay, he frontal cortex damage. Nowhere does it state that he actually suffered from a specific type of damage, but he did get hit by a streetcar, and he was in a coma for 6 days. However, I would like people to really note the fact that he was already having issues prior to the streetcar incident. So he was already exhibiting morbid behaviors. He was already exhibiting self-loathing. He was already doing bad things at the age of 5, 6, 7. So getting hit by a streetcar at the age of 10 and having any sort of brain damage is not the excuse for him becoming a bad person. There's no way you're going to be able to sell me that he would have ended up a different person had he not been hit by the streetcar, because he was already exhibiting those behaviors before. I want to make that clear because I know we talk a lot about brain damage when it comes to this stuff. And yes, I think he had brain damage. No, I do not think that altered who he was as far as a killer goes. Now, people would also describe that he had odd behaviors. So here are some of the behaviors that he was having. He would talk to people, but there wasn't anybody there. He would compulsively quote Bible passages. He would watch female family members undress. And he would go to school in fresh, clean clothes that his grandmother had put him in. But he would come home in literal rags. His grandmother had actually said it was almost like he was swapping clothes with a homeless person at some point throughout the day, because he would come home in clothes completely different than what she sent him to school in.
Which he might have been.
Now, in his early teens, he actually began to frequent bars and brothels, and he even contracted a venereal disease in his young teens from going to the brothels. Then in 1915...
That's why they tell you to cover the toilet seat.
In 1915, he actually gets sent to prison, to San Quentin prison, actually, for breaking and entering.
Ooh, that's right around the time your grandma was born.
1915? What are you talking about? My grandma wasn't born in 1915.
No, that would make her 100 years old.
Exactly. I'm
110.
I think she was born in the 20s, actually. He also gets paroled the following year in September of 1916, and he does end up going back to jail in March of 1917 for petty larceny. He gets released 6 months after going to jail for petty larceny, only to be arrested again for burglary, to then escape from the Los Angeles County Prison after serving only 5 months.
Wow. Talk about in and out.
So again, he's just on a roll. By the at the end of 1917, he actually enlists in the military, but he leaves within 6 weeks of signing up. To me, I'm like after boot camp, because isn't boot camp typically 6 weeks?
And I'm just kind of interested, can you sign up with a big criminal record like that?
Well, you got to remember, this is 1917. I don't know if they had access to the records as well. Or it probably took a little while to get background checks on these people.
Yeah, Morse code.
And you figure 1917, I don't remember when World War I or World War II was.
They probably taken everybody.
So they probably were taking anybody. It didn't really matter. However, so he leaves as in, he just doesn't go back. He basically goes AWOL. Signs up. 6 weeks into it, he disappears.
Hey, I'm going off the...
Yeah, going off not the record. He's going AWOL. That's what he's doing.
He's going off the base and just
not coming back. Yeah. However, he does enlist in several different branches of the military. So he goes to the Army.
Just trialing each one of them out.
6 weeks in, leaves, then goes to the Navy, spends about 6 weeks, leaves, which is literally like boot camp. He goes in just for boot camp and then he leaves because
I'm a pretty well-rounded soldier.
But he would enlist in these under different names. So it's not like they could look at records and see that he'd already signed up for military. He would use different names, and every single one of them, he would run away literally not very long after signing up. So he would sign up and then do some shit and then just disappear. Now, in 1918, he is actually committed to a mental hospital while he was serving in the Navy. Now, this was because they felt that he was having some very odd and erratic behaviors. There was a psychiatrist who saw him, and the psychiatrist said, "Oh, you know what? He doesn't appear to be homicidal, violent, or destructive." And so that psychiatrist was like, he's like, okay. Also, he does say that he has hallucinations and some paranoid delusions, but he doesn't seem like he's going to harm anybody. Now, he does stay in this mental facility for a hot minute until he escapes. Not once, but 3 times.
Jesus.
It got to the point, but by the 3rd time, the staff just stopped looking for it.
They're just like, hey,
They did.
The side door's unlocked.
Literally.
Stop breaking the windows.
He left and they were like, fuck it. Like, you're gone, bro. Like,
Bye-bye.
I don't like, exactly. Like, we're not doing this because he had escaped so many times. Now, he was at that point discharged from the Navy in May of 1919 because not only was he in and out of this mental facility, he escaped it multiple times. They don't know where he is, so they discharged him from the Navy. He does go on to get a job in St. Mary's Hospital as a janitor. And he actually meets a woman named Mary Martin, who is 60 years old at this time. And they get married in August of 1919.
And how old is he?
1919.
He was born in 1896.
97. So he's like
3,
23.
19, 22, and he's marrying a 60-year-old.
So he's 22. He marries this woman that he met. Now, their marriage did not last very long.
6 weeks?
No, not 6 weeks. 6 months,
Oh, well,
actually.
close.
Their marriage did not last very long because Mary said Earle made her life a living hell. She said he had bizarre sexual demands. He had jealous rages. He had religious delusions, and he had become increasingly violent in the 6 months they were together. So she said, bitch, get out my life. Peace out. And she left.
You won't get.
So then on May 19th, 1921, Earle goes to a home in San Francisco under the pretenses that he is a plumber. So he shows up at this home, lies, yes, I'm a plumber. They're looking for a plumber. And he's going to go do some work in their basement. Now, the real reason that he's actually at this house is because he has every intention to rape and molest 12-year-old Mary Summers, the daughter in this home. And he ends up cornering her in the basement, and she begins to scream. And her brother, her little brother, comes running to help her. And it literally scares Earle off. Like, he's like, I'm caught. And he just fucking runs out the house. Now, he is caught like a few hours later, and he is sent back to the mental hospital.
Can we call him something different? Because this is really going to...
Earle.
This is really going to ruin Earl of Sandwich for me.
No, because that's his name is
I
Earle.
know.
Now, again, let me reiterate. This is 1921. He escapes in 1919 was when he escaped for the last time at the mental hospital. Or they're like, fuck it, we're not going to look
like,
for him.
hey guys, I'm back.
1921, they send him back to the mental hospital because when they arrest him, they realize you fucking aren't even supposed to be out
He's like,
here.
oh, where's June? She left? Damn.
So they send him back. They're like, whatever. Well, he gets back to the mental hospital and he actually escapes 2 more times. And then they eventually discharge him from the mental hospital.
They're like, get out.
In 1925.
You're wasting resources.
So this brings us to February 20th of 1926. This is when he starts murdering, which also means he should have never been discharged.
So
Just
29 years old, he starts murdering.
Clara Newman, who is 60 years old, was actually Earle's first victim. She was a wealthy landlady in San Francisco. He went to her property pretending to be a potential tenant, and he ends up strangling Clara to death. He sexually violates her body. He then hides her body in an empty room in the apartment building, that is her apartment building, that he was pretending to be a tenant of. Then on March 2nd, 1926, Laura Beale, who is 63, he enters her home in San Jose. He strangles her with a silk cord, and it was actually strangled so tightly around her neck that it embedded in her flesh. That's how much he did that. Then on June 26th, 1926, Earle strangles and defiles the body of Lillian St. Mary, who is 63, in San Francisco. And 2 weeks later, he actually strangles a woman named Ollie Ollie Russell, who was 53, with a cord, and he was in her boarding house in Santa Barbara, and she was also sexually assaulted after her death. Then in August 16th, 1926, Mary Nisbet she was 52. She is actually found in the bathroom of a vacant apartment building that her and her husband owned in Oakland. Her husband's actually the one who found her body. She had been strangled and she had been raped after her death. Now, there was a witness to this, not to the incident, but like to Mary going into this apartment with a man. And the description that the witness gave to the officers said that the man that she walked in with was like super smiley, and he was stocky and he was dark and he had long arms and large hands. Now in October, Earle actually ends up moving to Portland, Oregon.
Oh no.
Now in October on October 19th, 1926, he rapes and kills Beta Withers, who was 35. Now she was also a landlady, and her body was found inside of a steamer trunk that was discovered by her teenage son.
Yeesh.
Now, what's really wild is that they actually had the fucking audacity to think that Beta had committed suicide.
And shoved herself in a steam trunk.
And shoved herself, right? So what they did was they held this thing that was called the coroner's jury. So what it basically sounds like is the coroner's jury is the coroner presents the evidence of this person's death to a group of people that they have picked. In this scenario, it was 3 men and 3 women. And they evaluate what the coroner has come with the death, like how the death happened. And then they vote on how this person died. So it was actually a split decision. 3 said it was suicide and 3 said it was murder. In the steamer trunk.
Now, I don't know what a steam trunk is. It might be huge.
Okay, a steam trunk is like, the trunks that they would hold clothes and shit in, like in attics. Like that's what she was inside of. But that, like, you're telling me that she just went in there and killed herself.
She might have been a little
And again,
lady.
I think she was strangled. So for them, I don't know how she strangled herself inside the steamer trunk. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand
Let's
that.
just say things have gotten better nowadays.
I guess. Now, on October 20th, 1926, Earle then murders Virginia Grant, who was 59, and he actually hid her body behind a furnace in a basement. Then on October 21st, 1926, a woman named Mabel Fluke went missing from her home. Now, her body is actually found several days later in the attic of her home, and she had been strangled to death with her own scarf.
See, now, here's my thing. Let's say the neighbors to us, they go missing.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I'm going to do is look all over their house.
What do you think?
And the fact that it took days later to find her
What
in
do
the
you
attic,
think?
I'm just saying, like, oh, somebody's missing. Let me check the house.
Yeah, check their house completely first.
Yeah.
Then Earle, at this point, decides he's going to move back to San Francisco. Now, on November 18th, 1926, Anna Edmonds, who was 56, is raped and killed. Then on November 19th, 1926, a pregnant woman is showing her home to a potential buyer, and she is attacked. She was 28 years old, and she actually survived the attack, and she was able to give a description to the police. Now, on November 29th, 1926, Blanche Myers is murdered by Earle in her own home. Now, police are able to recover some fingerprints from this home. So now they're starting to collect some evidence. And again, I think at this point, I don't know if I don't think they've connected the fact that all these murders are happening because some of them were in San Francisco, some of them were in Oregon, some of them were in Santa Barbara, they're not all in the same exact area. So I don't.
He spread them out far enough to where there's the connection's
it's not
obvious.
there. Yeah. And especially because this is again in the 1920s, it's not like they have email where they can, or whatever, fax machines even, where they can send out and say, this is what's going on in our area. I mean, police departments and nowadays don't even communicate like that.
No, back then they're like, send me the operator,
Yeah. Yeah. Excuse me, get off the party line.
Right.
I need to make a phone call. So as you can imagine, though, in this San Francisco area, where now since October, right? Or since November, there have been like 3 women that have gone missing and ended up dead. 1 woman was attacked. And prior to like the last 4 months before that, there were also a few women in San Francisco that, have gone missing or ended up dead. So the women in the community in San Francisco are kind of on edge now because they're like, okay, this is weird. Women talk. They are starting to realize that something's happening to these women. The police aren't really making that big of a deal about it, but it's kind of scary. And so they actually start to kind of talk amongst each other. And a woman actually ends up calling the police and telling them that she had a man who had stayed at her boarding house for like a couple of days. And she tells them that she would describe him as being a suspicious type of character. And she said that the day that Blanche was murdered, he actually went to that woman and said, like, I'm leaving town. See you later. And he then gives her jewelry as a gift for being such a gracious host and letting her stay in his boarding house. So the police are like, well, can we have a little peek-see at the jewelry? And she's like, yeah, of course.
I wondered whose it was.
So she gives the jewelry to the police, and they actually are able to identify this jewelry as belonging to a woman named Florence Monks. Now, Florence Monks had been murdered and raped in Seattle on November 23rd, 1926. So now they're like, hold the phone. This man.
Now we need to look from here.
Yeah.
All the way to there.
Yes. Now they're kind of like dots are connecting for them. Then on December 23rd, 1926, the body of Amira Berard, who is 41, is found inside of her home now in Iowa. So now he's like across the damn country in Iowa. And she had actually been garroted with a shirt and had been raped. For those of you that don't know what a garrote is, it is when you use like a wire or something and you loop it around the person's neck and pull it really tight. So that is what they found with her. But she had been it had been garroted around her neck with a t-shirt. Now on December 27th, 1926, Bonnie Pace, who is 23 from Kansas City, is strangled and raped in her home. And her husband is the one who found her body. And her husband was actually a suspect for a very short time in her murder. December 28th, 1926, Germania Harpin and her infant son were found murdered in their Kansas City home. Both had been strangled, and Germania had been raped after death. Now, after that, Earle then moves to Philadelphia. So he's literally cruising across the United States. And on April 27th, 1927, he murders and then rapes Mary McConnell. She is yet another landlady. Then on May 27th of 1927, Jenny Randolph is murdered. She is strangled and raped after her death as well. Earle had actually rented a room from her in Buffalo, New York, and her body is found 3 days later, stuffed under a bed. Then on June 1st, 1927, the boarding house manager, Fannie Mae, and a fellow boarder, Maureen Atorthy, they were both found murdered and raped in Detroit, Michigan. An electrical cord had actually been cut from the table lamp, and it was used to strangle Fannie. Then on June 3rd, 1927, Mary Cecilia Sietzma is killed in Chicago. Then on June 8th, 1927, Lola Cowan, she's 14. She actually goes missing in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So he is now in Canada.
Is all over the place.
I feel like at this point he's like killing and then kills a couple people in each like place he stops and then knows that like I can't stick around. And so then he just moves to the next place. Now, the thing about Lola is she actually had left her home because she was selling flowers door to door and she never came home. Then 2 days later, this woman, Emily Patterson, also goes missing, who literally lives in the same area as Lola. Now, she is later found that night by her husband. She had been strangled and raped and beaten with a claw hammer, and she had been shoved under her son's bed. So her husband, finds his wife raped, beaten with a claw hammer, strangled, and shoved under her son's bed.
That's fucking demented.
Every time I read something like that, when the husband finds the wife, I just think, what would you do? Like,
rage. What
would you do? Like, as a married person, okay, for me, if I came home and found my husband dead, I don't know how I would react. I mean, obviously sad, but I feel like you're exactly right. I feel like I'd be more angry than anything, and I would literally probably try to find the person who did it. But I think about, for some reason, I feel like when it's a husband with his wife, if, obviously if you have a good relationship, if you don't, you probably don't care as much. But if you have a good relationship, I just think about how, as a husband, do you watch your wife, who, by the way, most people's lives, the husband is always like, wants to be the protector. So then how do you feel to come home and find your wife dead in a fucking horrific manner and you weren't there to protect her? How does that fucking feel? Like, that would be the worst thing in the world, right? Like, I just don't Anyways. Police at this point end up doing a search of all the boarding houses in the area on June 12th of 1927 because they're just like, something's fucking wrong. A little girl goes missing. This woman ends up dead in her home. What could this possibly be? And then, of course, one of the smart things is, well, we have some boarding houses around here. People come and go in these boarding houses. Let's check them. Let's find out, like, who's been here, who's coming into our little ass town and killing our women, right? So that's what they do. They actually end up finding the body of Lola among the searches, and they find her body under a bed in the room that Earle had been staying in. And
well, that just doesn't fucking point a finger at somebody.
Now, the problem with this is also, though, that Lola had been mutilated, like from head to toe, which is so different than all of his other victims. Also, she was much younger than all of his victims.
But the progression is there as you're reading them to me. Like the claw hammer, right? Like that wasn't something that it was before.
No.
It was just strangulation and the other stuff. And then it was like, then he was beating, then the claw hammer.
Yeah.
And now.
And but Lola went missing before the woman went missing. And so I think Lola was actually killed before the woman was, but she just was. But again, he put her under the bed where he was staying. And she was, I didn't see pictures, like obviously not pictures, but they had a drawing, like kind of a drawing of where her, like where the mutilation was. And it was like literally every part of her body was somehow cut up, or like she wasn't, I wouldn't say that she was dismembered, but her body was completely destroyed by him.
Yeah.
So that's weird. So on June 16th, 1927, so this is 4 days after they're doing this boarding house search, the police in Killarney, which is near Manitoba, stopped a man who matched Earle's description, but his name was Virgil Wilson. So they bring Virgil down to the local jail because good on you, Manitoba police, for being like, oh, your name's Virgil? Have a good day. No, they were like,
you can't spell Virgil without Earle.
Yes,
Virgil.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Virgil.
But what they said was, you match the description. And he's like, no, my name's Virgil Wilson. And they're like, okay, Virgil, well, can you come down to the police office or to the police station with us anyways? We'd like to ask a few questions because you literally fit the description of the man we're looking for. So fine. They bring Virgil down to the police station. They're asking him questions. They're like, we're just going to book you in for the night because, to be honest with you, we got more questions. He's like, whatever. So he escapes that night. It's fine.
Duh.
It's fine. So spoiler alert.
They should have known.
Spoiler alert. It was actually Earle. It was Earle. So Earle then decides he's catching
and in the cell, it's like Earle was here.
So Earle like escapes out the fucking prison. And he's like, bitch, I'm out. He goes and catches a train out of town. Literally jumps on this train. This train's literally leaving. He jumps on. I'm assuming he didn't buy a ticket. I'm assuming he just like snuck onto the train. And this train actually happened to be the same train that a boatload of Winnipeg police officers were on. So needless to say, 12 hours after his escape, he is recaptured because he's on a train with a shit ton of police officers. They recognize him. They sure as shit arrest him.
They're like, wait a minute, aren't you
They're
supposed
like, excuse
to
me,
be
Virgil.
somewhere?
So they bring him back. Okay. And the police then distribute his photograph to, I appreciate this because I don't even think they do this now. And it's not getting political, but our fucking world is so fucked right now between United States and other countries, Canada being our closest neighbor, but having the worst fucking relationship with them. But these police officers distributed his picture to every single police department in the United States because they knew he had come from the United States. And so they distribute his photograph to all of them. And there were multiple people and identifications from California and Illinois that they literally contacted and said, that man is wanted for this murder, this attempted murder. Like, this man fits all the descriptions. And his fingerprints, so San Francisco actually had said, could you please send us his fingerprints? Because we actually have fingerprints from a couple of crime scenes. We'd like to see if he's the person that we're looking for. So as Canada is bomb.com, they send those fingerprints to him, and they find out that his fingerprints match all of the crime scenes that had these women that were strangled and killed that they had been able to get fingerprints off of. Earle at first confesses to the crimes, and he's like, he actually said to like the public, like he was like, they were like asking him questions, and he was like, I only do my lady killings on Saturday nights. Like,
save Saturday night for the ladies.
So he admits to it, and then all of a sudden he like backs up, and like
kidding.
Couple of days later he's like, no, I didn't really kill anybody. I'm absolutely innocent. I never hurt these women. So Earle is actually held in Canada. So they don't expedite him. They don't send him to the United States because Canada's like, we're going to try you.
Extradite.
What did I say?
Expedite.
They didn't ship him. They did not extradite him. So what they did is they said, well, before we send you anywhere, sir, you are going to be held and tried for the murders of Lola Cowan and Emily Patterson. So he is charged with the 2 counts of murder for them. He is also charged with 2 counts of attempted molestation and 1 burglary charge as well.
And escaping custody?
Nope. He ends up going to trial on November 1st, 1927. And Earle's ex-wife, good old Mary, remember Mary? Good old Mary testifies against him. And she says that motherfucker is completely insane. Completely insane.
Dude's nuts.
He needs to stay away from the world. There were also actually 60 people who testified against him as well. And these were people who like literally could link him to scenes, properties, stolen items. Like they were either family members that are like, nope, that was my daughter or my wife's, necklace, and it was found on him. That was a witness that linked him. Or, oh, nope, that person stayed on my property. Or, where they found bodies.
Like, that was my neighbor.
Right. Like, I saw him walking with her into her residency as a potential tenant.
By golly, old Earle. Yeah, I know him.
So all these people were like, yeah, that guy's a bitch. So on November 5th, 1927, it actually took the jury 40 minutes to deliberate. That's it.
That's because somebody had to pee.
And they found him guilty. Now, at the time, in Canada, they had the death penalty, and he was sentenced to death.
Great.
Now, in December, there was a 30-page document submitted petitioning for clemency on the grounds of insanity for him, saying, hold on, we understand you want the death penalty, but how about we don't give him the death penalty? We don't kill him. He just has life in prison because he clearly isn't right. He's had hallucinations. He has auditory and visual hallucinations. So like, obviously he's not quite straight in the mind. So maybe some of these killings had to do with that, to which the appeal was like, absolutely not. Denied. So on January 13th, 1928, I want to make this very fucking clear. He was found guilty November 5th, 1927. On January 13th, 1928, so 2 months later, Earle Nelson is hanged at the Vaughan Street Jail in Winnipeg.
Yeah, well,
good fucking job, Canada, for just doing the damn thing.
Get it done.
And not letting him live for 42 years and then dying of, natural causes because, thank you. If you're going to give the death penalty, fucking just do it. If you're not, great. But if you have given the death penalty, do it. You all waited 2 months. Good on you. His last statement was, I am innocent. I stand innocent before God and man. I forgive those who have wronged me and ask forgiveness of those that I have injured. God have mercy. I forgive those who have wronged me. Bitch, nobody wronged you. You literally killed a bunch of old women.
Yeah.
Literally. God is not forgiving you.
And you ain't going up there, bud.
You are not. You are not.
They're kicking that floor out and you're going straight on down.
You're done, sir. You're done. So that is the story of Earle Nelson. Would you like the shots?
That's usually why I'm here.
Okay. So because of how many times Earle escaped from the mental facility that he was
holds
in,
like a world record.
he was nicknamed Houdini by the staff. So like I can just imagine they're like, hey, have you checked on Houdini? They going, damn it, he's Houdini.
He pulled a Houdini.
Fun fact, just this is so off subject, but when I was in high school, we had a party and we all got in trouble because the cops showed up like blazing through every fucking outlet of where we were at. We were like sitting outside and like cops came from everywhere. And we're all getting in trouble because we're all drinking. And there's one of the kids was there and they handcuffed him because he had drugs. So they handcuffed him behind his back. And we're all standing outside taking breathalyzers and shit. And the kid ends up taking his hands from behind his back with the handcuffs on and like steps through them backwards through them or whatever and puts his hands in front of him and starts to run. And the cops are like, he's pulling a Houdini. And they start chasing him through like the forest that's like back to the house we're in. And we're all like laughing and cheering him on like, go.
See, and she says we,
not Jay.
Me.
Jay wasn't there.
Not
this
me.
Was me in high school.
I stayed home
No,
and
you didn't.
studied and never got in trouble.
Okay. That's not true. Not true. There's so many stories I can say.
We're not here to talk about me.
I'm not going to talk
We're
about
here
it.
to talk about the shots.
I'm just saying they really do say Houdini when people are doing like magic tricks. Like, it was just, anyways, when I read that, I giggled because I was like, the memories of when I was a high school student. Anyways, so he was nicknamed Houdini. Then when Earle was arrested, he was actually wanted in 6 cities across the United States. That's how many cities he had actually hit and killed multiple women in. He also was the first serial killer to gain widespread media attention in American history.
Well,
This included radio, magazines, and newspapers.
not TV.
Well, it was the 20s. I don't know if they had a TV yet. Then his confirmed murder count is 20, which was actually the highest murder count. He held the record for 50 years.
Wow.
Not that that's a record you want to have.
No, but that's with all the serial killers we talk about.
Well, you think about it, Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Ted Bundy killed, I think, a hell of a lot more. I think he killed like 40-something women. But I mean, that because that was actually one of the things they said was before Ted Bundy, this is one of the articles I read said before Ted Bundy, there was Earle Nelson. And it's because Earle Nelson had held the record for killing the most people in the United States.
I wonder if they count the Canadian killings too, or if
I'm
it's
sure
just,
I think they do. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming because he killed people. It had also been claimed that Earle was the first serial sex murderer in the 20th century in America. He has set a lot of firsts. Not good ones. Not good ones.
He was the first piece of shit.
And final shot. I feel like I say this a lot. Alfred Hitchcock. There's a film called Shadow of a Doubt. Have you ever seen it?
No, I have not.
Okay. You might want to check it out because his film Shadow of a Doubt was inspired by Earle Nelson.
Interesting.
I feel like Alfred Hitchcock just like watched the newspapers and anytime something bad happened, he was
Serial
like,
killer's
oh,
gonna
this
make
is a movie
out of it.
So anyways, yes, those are the shots for Earle Nelson. So again, I'm going to reiterate really quickly. I laughed a lot, not because it's funny, but what else am I supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, we get it. This is serious, but at the same time, we got to get through it.
Well, you got to get through it. And the thing is, this shit's not fun to talk about. Like, I like it because it's really interesting and I wish I could crawl into a serial killer's brain to figure out why their brain does what it does. That's why I'm a psychology major, because I genuinely think the way that people's brains work are fascinating, but I like to learn about it. But when I talk about it, I just can't help but laugh because, to be honest with you, it's dark ass shit. And
And some of the times
Also,
it's
it
just
would
kind
not-
of unbelievable.
Well, and it would not be very entertaining to listen to us if I was just mopey Mary the whole time talking about a sad story. So we try to bring a little bit of like light to the darkness. Apologies if you don't like that kind of stuff. Just don't listen if you don't like it.
And she was not referring to the Marys in the story being mopey.
No, I was actually referring to just Mary M. Mopey.
Because it was an M.
Okay, I could say Mopey Mark. I could say whatever. I mean, listen, I do that a lot. When my son was little, I called him Krabby Craig, and I'm just a weird person. If you know me in real life, you know I'm weird. If you don't know me in real life, just take my fucking word for it.
Take our word for it.
I'm
She's
weird
weird
and awkward, and if you ever meet me in person, I'm even more fucking awkward.
Yeah.
My son used to tell me when we would work at when we owned our coffee shop, he would very much so always tell me, because, you know, when people come up to your window that you don't know, or even if you do know them, but when you don't know them, you try to be nice. And so that's what I would do. And every time he'd walk away and I'd look at him, he goes, "You are so weird." And I'd always go, "I know, I just need to learn how to shut up." And I can't, because my brain can't comprehend talking to people. Jay has witnessed this a million times. A stranger will ask a question and I tell them.
She'll panic and tell them our whole life story.
Yes. So
and they're like, all they asked was, what time was it?
This is just me. So apologies, really, truly apologies if you don't appreciate it. And to be honest, it's not going to hurt my feelings if you don't listen to us.
If you don't
appreciate
like it,
that's fine.
Don't listen. I mean,
I hope, though, for the majority.
We're not in this to be famous. We're just in it to do it.
Speak for yourself. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I don't want to be famous. I'm too fucking weird to be famous. But all I'm saying is I would just hope that the majority of you genuinely like listening to us talk and banter and my weirdness. And I'm hoping that the way that these stories come across will let you learn something, but not feel super depressed at the end. Because I sometimes get super depressed when I research them because it's sad. And I can't give a sad story to somebody. That's not fun. Who wants to listen to that?
Yeah.
Literally nobody. Anyways, I could rant for hours and days and years about it, but we're not going to.
But if you did make it and you do like us, follow us.
And I'm sure most likely you are, but if this is your
us.
first time here, make sure you're clicking
share.
Make sure you're clicking that follow button on whatever platform you're listening to us on, because if you do that, it will pop up every Thursday with a reminder that we posted a new episode.
And let your friends know. Be like, hey, I found these weirdos and they talk about serial killers.
For real. And honestly,
it's super fucking weird.
If you follow us on social media, interact with us. I'm on social media all the time. I will gladly banter back and forth with you. I'll have conversations with you. It would be a blast. And if you have any ideas of things you want us to talk about, let me know. Final thing I do want to point out, and I'm going to do this on both of them. So I know this is long. I'm sorry. We just recently went through a thing where my daughter's friend's husband went missing. And I had all intents of actually coming on here and doing a whole spiel about him and putting his face all over our social media. However, he was found safe. He was missing for like 4 days. And so he was actually located safe. And so we don't have to do that. But what it made me think about was, if you are somebody who is listening to any of our podcasts, this one or Crime Bitches, if you have somebody in your life, or if you know somebody who is missing, or there's some sort of unsolved situation going on, let me know. Email us, DM us, whatever. I will take the time. Jay and I will take the time on Crime Bitches. Sierra and I will take the time to shout out who you're looking for. And if you can give us pictures or flyers, we can post them and share them, because it's very important to get the word out there as much as we can.
We will help share the message.
Right. And this is a true crime podcast. So, when somebody is missing, the more that you can get out there, the better. And true crime people are the best people to look for somebody, because
we have those internet sleuths.
And we all think about things differently. So if you're somebody who is a true crime person, as you would be if you're listening to this, because I don't know what the you're listening to this for if you're not true crime, know that if you see a case that you're like, oh, this needs more attention, honestly, email it at fatalblendpodcast@gmail.com. or DM us at any of our socials. We have a TikTok, we have an Instagram and a Facebook. Let us know. And I will either dig into it if it's a story that I need to be doing, or if it's not, if it's like a literal somebody's missing, I'll start posting videos on TikTok about that person. I will post pictures and flyers, and then we will, at the beginning and ending of every episode, shout out the people that we're looking for with descriptions and anything else. So I wanted to throw that out there because it's important, and it just becomes more important all the time. I see too many people missing in this world and not enough people looking. So
Yep.
that's that.
Which brings us to...
I think that's all I've had to say. So thank you very much for joining us and learning about Earle Nelson. And this part, I'm just going to say goodbye.
And this is the time where I say bye-bye.
Remember to lock your doors and bar your windows. Until next time.